Hello, everyone. Well, it's Thursday morning, and yeah, we got some Star Trek news on gaming, so I figured I'd cover it. So if I do seem a little bit off, that's because it is like in the morning, going into work late, and I decided to do this. So the first one, I'm going to be looking at both of the new trailers for Star Trek games that came up. The first one is Star Trek Infection, and I've already seen these trailers, just so you know. So I'll probably be stopping while we're watching the trailer. And the second, I'm not just going to do like a full watch through. So if you haven't watched the trailer in its entirety, please watch that first and then come back here. They're only like 1 minute trailers, and then the other one is I want to Star Trek Voyager Across the Galaxy or something like that. I don't. Well, when we get to it, I've got thoughts on these. So let's get into it though. I don't want to waste too much time. So this one is described as a sci-fi scenario horror, or not horror, survival game. So obviously we are on a Defiant class. What was that one called? The USS Lumen. A Defiant class vessel, the USS Lumen. The graphics already look a little off. I can't complain too much because Star Trek Resurgence kind of had like the same style of graphics. These are probably the same people that did that did Resurgence, which I enjoyed Resurgence a lot. Um but I've got obviously this is a VR game, which I am not at all fond of. I do not like VR. I'm not a big fan of VR. So as you can see here, we've got some kind of infection brewing all over the ship, and my thoughts on that is that's fine. Um, we Star Trek has always had a element of space horror in it. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Alien Isolation. Um, yeah, the space zombies. So this obviously takes place in the post Nemesis, right around Resurgence, probably timeline. Um, Again, I am not. I Yeah. So you're a Vulcan protag, which is nice to be a Vulcan. I mean, so reminds me of a bunch of with Star Trek Hidden Evil, which I have a complete playthrough on this channel. So if you haven't already, please check that out. But it was a Halloween special from last year. But yeah, there's definitely some like the end of that game was like on the Enterprise, and the Enterprise was like infected with this alien, infection of like an ancient race that was taking over. Blah 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 blah. Um, So obviously they're leaning in on the VR with the mind meld and everything else, and so obviously as you can see, this person is a Vulcan. I don't know if it's like a captain. I don't know if it's a whatever. Okay, so the VR survival, first person survival type setting. Just really my thoughts on this game are just that I kind of wish this was more like Breath Edge or like Mission Critical to coin a retro game. If it's going to be first person, I don't need zombies. Breath Edge was nice because there's a short let's play. I didn't play through the whole game, but it's basically like your ship gets totally obliterated. You are stuck in like a cabin, and you have a little bit of air, and you have to like figure out how to survive and escape. I would have actually preferred something like that, where like something happens and your ship is destroyed, but you have like this small pocket where you can survive, but then you got to go out, get resources, come back, like that kind of survival. This more seems just like Resident Evil mixed with just and I don't need zombies for Star Trek. I know that you got your zombies with the Borg. I mean, you got basically the Venom symbiote here that is kind of um Yeah, that's kind of around, and you got a Vulcan who is obviously resistive to this infection, but um yeah, I really don't I really don't care for it all that much. I probably won't play this. I don't like VR. I really won't play a VR. But I guess it's another Star Trek attempt at another game that's probably better, like the Alien uh the Aliens game. So Alien Isolation. So obviously Star Trek Infection is kind of like a rip off of that. I really wish, as I said, I mean, if you're gonna rip something off, at least make it a little bit more Trek, where it's like you have to like use your brain to survive. You can't just run around and like neutralize zombies. Yeah, this just doesn't pique my interest at all. Sorry. Okay, so that's my thought on that one. So let's go back, and I'm going to where is it at? Da, 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 da. There's where is it? Right here. Across the Unknown, not Across the Galaxy, Across the Unknown. So this is Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. So this one seems interesting, and I might actually check this one out. And I'm sorry about the ad here, um, but I don't know. Sorry, you're gonna have to get a Prime ad now. This video is brought to you by Prime. All right. So anyway, so Star Trek Voyager. I am not a huge fan of Star Trek Voyager, as a lot of people know. Has its has its good things. It's got its good Trek moments, but so this one is a little bit interesting because so you're obviously you're following the narrative of Voyager. Um, you got the Kazon, the Caretakers Array, but then you kind of got stuff like this, and so there's this right here is the interesting part. So you have the entire ship already, and it looks like you probably and in the description it does say you manage resources, um and you manage your crew, you make away teams, you make your way across to the unknown to get home. So I this almost almost reminds me of Space Haven a little bit. um Managing your crew, managing across the cosmos. um so this one does kind of remind me of like a Space Haven type game. It makes sense just because of the Voyager, plot line of them being across the galaxy and being all by themselves. They have to survive on their own without any, without any help from the Federation. So it's kind of like all under, and that's kind of what Space Haven is like. If you've seen this channel, I've played Space Haven a couple times. Um, it's survival where you got to just manage resources, manage your crew, survive the hostile environments of space. This obviously looks like there's going to be more of a combat component in this than Space Haven has. Space Haven does have combat, but it's nowhere near like this. So this one might be more interesting for me, even though I'm not a Voyager fan. This one definitely piques my interest more than the Star Trek Infection. I kind of wish they would have like done a resurgence too. Honestly, I was kind of hoping for that, but yeah. Um, so yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, a little bit disappointing. We get two announcement trailers, and neither of them are particularly stellar. Um, Star Trek is start. I get it. Star Trek has a very very tumultuous gaming history. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss, and I mean, you know what? Star Trek Infection might be incredibly fun. I don't know, but not for me. It's a 3D, even if it's first person, like first person survival, I still don't really care for it. um as I said, I would kind of prefer something like Breath Edge or Mission Critical, where you have to go around, repair the ship, and survive until and you don't even need zombies for that. Just survive um until you can figure out a way to get the ship running enough to get back to Federation outpost or something, something like that. Across the Unknown seems interesting. I'd like to see more. As I said, it kind of seems a little bit more like Space Haven. um I'm sure you guys in the comments can put down there what you think it reminds you of. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. This doesn't need to be too detailed, but yeah, so 2 new Trek games, and we'll see how it goes. So with all that being said, everybody, thank you very much for joining me here today. If you haven't already and you like Star Trek games, like, share, and subscribe to Milquetoast Gaming, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Catch you later.